I set a number at 150% of my expenses, really for two reasons. One, I do want to enjoy life, but number two, right now is an interesting time. It would really stink to leave that day job only to boomerang bank in 6 months because maybe real estate didn't pan out exactly like you wanted it to. And so if you leave, just barely covering the bills, well, you might have to come back, and I don't want to see that happen. So when I
Mm.
do leave, I want it to be, very, very comfortable.
All right, awesome. Here's another episode. Today we have Jerry on the line. What's going on, Jerry? How you doing?
Hey, Arsenio, I'm good. It's a good day.
Yes, it is indeed. So you're in Florida right now, sunny Florida.
That's
Um,
right, Fort Lauderdale.
yeah, so it's great to connect with you, and I'm glad to have you on the show. Let's go ahead and dive into like who you are, where you're from, just a good bio, and let the audience members get to know you.
Absolutely. So I've got a portfolio of 48 single family homes. I've been doing single family since like 2006. So a lot of years there. Last 3 years, I've been doing multifamily, both, well, initially as a limited partner, like a lot of folks, and then jumped over to the general partner side last year. So I'm newer as a general partner. I would consider myself kind of a co GP on most deals. I'm not really to the point where I can lead the deals yet. But yeah, I'm growing in my real estate career. I've still got, a full-time IT job, but I'm making that transition to eventually replace that daytime, W-2 income with real estate. I'm not there yet, but I know that I'll get there.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So you have a job, your W-2 job, just
I
like
do.
myself, and you're
Yep.
still doing real estate, right?
Yep. Yep. Well, I do enjoy real estate, and one of the things that I chat a little bit about. I wrote an ebook on real estate because you can get involved from a passive side as, hey, I've just got some money, or you can get involved on the active side. And I talk to a lot of investors that tell me, they want to buy a single family home and rent it, and that's great. That's been very successful for me, and that's what we're going to chat a little bit about today, and why I have so many. But that is not passive. That is not a part-time gig. That does interrupt your day job, and you have to be prepared, to deal with those interruptions. And most of the people that I talk to that are doing well, they're making bank. They don't have time. They don't have the attention. They don't have the ability to do, active real estate, and that's okay. Maybe they will when they retire. And some of my investors are actually working with me because they're like, Jerry, I want to passively invest with you now, but there will be a day where I want to go active. I'm like, that's cool. Cause when I go to full retirement, I'm probably do a little bit more single family, but right now my time has to be devoted to my W-2.
That's right. That's right. Because I mean, you're right now. Your job is providing you a steady income, of course, right?
Hmm.
You just can't drop the ball right now, but you have a certain goal in mind and where you want to take you and where you want this business to take you. And you haven't met that goal yet, but you're getting there, right?
That's right.
So,
That's right.
with your single family houses, you said you have 48.
I have 48. Yep.
Man, 1 to 48. Can you share let's share, when you started in the single family housing space, like, what made you jump into single family housing?
Well, I always knew that I wanted to invest in real estate. I thought I wanted 5 to 10 rentals and pay them off. And between my 401k and Social Security and 5 to 10 rentals, I thought, well, there's my comfortable retirement.
Mm,
That was before I kind of got in the game and really fully understood what it takes to own 5 or 10. And for, I don't know, 10 years, I only had one. I bought my first one with my brother-in-law. We both came up with cash because back then I couldn't get, I knew what a bank loan was. I'd bought a house.
mm,
I understood the whole 80% value, mortgage rates, all that. And none of the banks that I could talk to would do for a house for an investment property. Like, I didn't know that there were banks and credit unions and other types of lending available. So it was cash. We bought it cash, and we made a couple $100 a month. And it really didn't make either one of us rich. But I knew if I had enough of these, and that I could get to the place where it would make a difference. Kind of move the needle for the monthly revenue. And so it really wasn't until a lot of years later where I had a fair bit more discretionary income. I bought out my brother-in-law because I was like, hey, this is what I want to do, and I want to do a few more of these. And I began buying the ugly ducklings. that needed, sometimes it was just a paint job, but I bought classy properties in a very low end neighborhood in southern Georgia. I have family from that area. It's a pretty healthy drive from where I live, but I was up there enough to learn the market. And you could literally buy a house for $25,000 and rent it out for $500 a month. And
Mm.
if you do the math, the cap rates just work. And then the gravy was that I found local banks that would do 80% loan to values all day long. And it was like, okay, so I got to come up with the 20%, which on 25 grand, that's not big money. That's not, buying a $500,000 house.
Anybody
It's
would want to invest in
yeah.
that type of house right now, you know.
And so I think it was 20, I might get my dates wrong. So let's just say 2017. I think I bought three houses like that, and I was like, yeah, okay, I'll do two or three of these a year, and life is good, right? And I was beginning to start, kind of formalizing some of my systems. How do I track things? How do I, market rents? And I was doing a lot of things myself at 400 miles away. It is what it is. In the beginning, I actually recommend to people do things yourself because you'll understand things at a level far better than what anybody can teach you, and nobody cares about your money like you do. That's just, I have property managers, they're good, I like them, they still make mistakes, they're called people.
Mm.
And and you just have to look over their shoulder in an intelligent way so that if they do make a mistake, it's not like, oh, we just lost, you know $500 a month for 6 months because nobody noticed that this happened and the software didn't catch it and you didn't catch it. Like, that's a real world one from this year because
Right.
I actually backed off a little bit and I stopped tracking everything on a monthly basis, only to find out, okay, let's go back to monthly.
Mm.
um, but back to the single family homes. I think one of the things that really moved the needle for me is I bought out a small investor. I think I had 5 houses at the time, and I bought 13 houses all at one time, 2017, 2018 era. And it was so much easier buying those 13 houses than any one of the houses before. And you say, how is that? Well, yes, you had to come up with a bigger down payment. Um, Although that was actually the golden goose for me because I found a bank that would loan money on the value of the home, not necessarily what I was paying for it. And for the listeners, they're like, that's the unicorn. And it is, it doesn't exist anymore. This was a small local bank that, in order to, sell their loans to Freddie and Fannie Mac, they have to do 80% loan to value or 80% of the purchase price. Well, they were not interested in selling the loan. So they had their own underwriting guidelines and they would loan me 80% on the value of the portfolio. And so the portfolio, it was a distressed sale. I offered the guy a ridiculously low number. He didn't have a choice. He sold. I went back to my bank, who, by the way, I had done the traditional 80% loan to values on those other smaller properties with them. And I was like, "Hey, Garrett, what can I do? How much will the bank loan on this?" And he came back. I was buying 13 properties for $320,000, and they would loan $320,000. I'm not making this up.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So it was like five and a quarter, 5.5%, somewhere in there. And I was like, now I still had some reno on a few of them, but as you learn in single family, there are times where you just keep renting it at that reduced rate. If you don't have the cash, you don't have $10,000, $15,000 for renovation, then just keep renting it for the couple $100 a month below what it should be until you got the cash, right? Cash flow is king when it comes to single family. Pay attention to cash flow.
Mm.
It's a golden nugget for somebody out there that's like, yeah, you could reno them all at the same time. They're all vacant. You're getting no money at all. And then how long is it going to take you to get your money back? And the answer is way too long. So we were very guarded about, how many vacancies, how many full renos. We usually like to do big renovations, like, new kitchens and new baths when there's not a tenant in there. So we just sort of wait for them to either move out or don't renew. And so I hit 18 properties that year and realized, hey, I sort of blew through that 5 or 10 properties. Like, am I done? And I thought, well, if I can buy these properties, without a lot of money down, I need to do this all day long. Like, I need to do as many of these as I can possibly find that pencil out, basically. And so what I started doing is actually getting even more. Like, I had bought those properties at a distressed sale price, and I did I didn't know what a cap rate was at the time. So I will share that, I only learned about cap rates when I got into multifamily,
Mm,
but it was around a 12% cap rate that I was targeting. I know the numbers that I was looking for. And so I started looking for an even better cap rate.
mm,
And so, when I would go to offer the next, you know, investor that was selling six houses, I gave him a 15% cap rate. And you say, well, all they can do is come back and maybe settle at 12 again. So I just lowered what I was willing to pay.
mm,
And sometimes you get lucky and sometimes you don't. You obviously have to figure out what the property is actually worth to you.
mm,
But like in a lot of things, if it's a motivated seller, I don't have to buy, but you have to sell. And if
mm,
I'm the only one in the game, then it comes down to how well you're going to negotiate. And so really the I think the secret was I then understood exactly how to buy these properties at a really good rate. I had a phenomenal banking source. I knew the markets extremely well. I had several different realtors really just looking off the MLS. I mean, I didn't do the driving for dollars or some of the other, there's a lot of different ways that you can find properties, but my portfolio was 400 miles away. I would make it there maybe once a month, but I wasn't driving for dollars. I didn't have the time to go find these things. I had to live with the best I could do on the MLS, and I actually think I did pretty darn well.
mm,
Um, and then probably about 2019, my great little local bank, who I loved, who was never interested in selling, got bought out, and it was like, oh, well, there goes my honeypot for money, because nobody else was loaning like they were, and everybody else was very happy to do like a traditional 20% loan to value, and then in the last year or two, it's more like a 25% loan to value, right? People are getting a little bit more conservative.
right.
But then an interesting thing happened in COVID, and that is my rents increased 40, 50, 60%, having nothing to do with my skill at real estate, right? The demand suddenly was through the roof, and we
Mm,
had 550 a month houses jumping up to 750, 800 a month. And, you know, it was just a great day to own real estate. The problem, though, is those little houses went from being able to buy them off the MLS at 25,000 up to about 70 to 75,000. So they priced themselves out of the market. The cap rates were nowhere near what they used to be. And so that was about the time that I got interested in multifamily, because my sweet spot, my banking source, the whole market shifted. And that's one of the lessons for your listeners is whatever works today isn't going to work forever. You,
mm,
you you can't have this one and done mindset that you're only going to have, a particular buy box and you're going to do things a particular way. One of the things that I really love about real estate is there's so many different ways to make money. In 2021, my son really wanted to get involved in real estate, and he always wanted to flip houses. I'm like, all right, dude, here's the buy box. And we flipped some houses together. He got some great hands-on experience as not only a bit of a general manager, because managing some of the subs and some of the different people that you had to get in to do the work, but I try to pour into him a little bit how to find a good house, what the market will pay for it and that kind of thing. So it was a neat father and son thing. But again, the market changed a little bit. I mean, we were buying houses, and even though we were flipping them quickly, it was worth, the same house was worth $30,000 more, even if we didn't do anything to it in a 6 month time frame. So it was like the perfect time. You really couldn't lose. There was one house we made a mistake on, and the guy that does the estimating, we look at roofs, we look at kitchens, we look at structural. If a house is 30 years old and it needs an air conditioner for $5,000, like that doesn't even move the needle. That's like, okay, that's one of the things we got to do, but we don't get scared about replacing an AC or a bathroom. But the kitchen you can spend a few bucks on, the roof you can spend a few bucks on. And so I'd asked him, hey, did you check the AC in the roof? And he said, yeah. Well, there was a communication gap between him and the guy that actually did the checking. They thought I was asking, do we need to check these things? And the answer was, we need to check these things, but nobody actually checked them. So on
mm,
that particular house, we had I think it was about 6 grand for the AC, and I think it was about the same money for the roof. I mean, these are chump change expenses compared to like in South Florida, you would have spent a lot more on a roof. But so it was about $12,000 worth of expenses that we didn't factor into our budget, and we might have lost money on that property had the value not increased to cover that gap. The reality is we had 3 projects going at the same time, and our team, we had a team of about 11 guys working for us. There was just, we hadn't formalized some of the ways we were doing business, and there was just too many people doing too many different jobs
Mm.
that the we started getting sloppy. We started seeing mistakes. That's when we kind of pulled back a little bit and said, all right, let's just do one at a time. And then even after that, there was another pretty big mistake made in estimating something that we just decided, hey, the the effort really wasn't worth the money. We did make money, but we also got bailed out by the market just appreciating so much that we just decided it's been fun, but we're not going to do any more flips because the rentals were doing so well that we wanted to put time and energy into the rentals, which I plan to keep,
Mm.
well into retirement.
That was a great story and a lot to unpack there. So I just want to go back.
Hmm.
You went into the single family space with your brother initially,
Hmm.
and then you bought him out with the with the first house, and then you
Right.
scaled from that one house to I can't remember the exact numbers, but 11 to 13 to now 48 different single family houses. Were these in the same market, same local, like 400 miles away? You said, were these in the same market, or are they like all over the place? And just I know you're pretty much experienced now, like experienced
Hmm.
within a single family housing space. You know what to look for, and you know what holes you had in some of your
Hmm.
program. So just where was these properties located? And then I think I'm going to shift into where you had your shift. You had your shift and went with the market and how you went from the single family housing into the multifamily space. But go ahead and share if you could where
Sure.
these properties were typically located.
Absolutely. So my first portfolio of houses is in Valdosta, Georgia. It's the southernmost decent sized city in central Georgia.
Okay.
Um, for folks not familiar, it's about 3.5 hours south of Atlanta, and
Mhm.
it's right on I-75. So one of the main roads out of Florida into Georgia, which has turned out to be a bit of a blessing because a lot of folks moved out of Florida into Valdosta to help drive the rents during COVID, which has been kind of a good thing.
Mhm.
Um, there's 34 there, and then there's 14 in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. The two are only related because when things, when you look purely at a cap rate, when you look purely at what's the rate of return, my Georgia portfolio reached a point where I would no longer buy the houses for what they would cost in terms of the rent that's produced. Like that's where they are right now.
Got it.
You can do the Burr method for those not familiar. Buy, renovate, rent, remortgage. You can do that model and probably make money, but I'm not interested in making $50 a month, right? The reality with these properties is, especially in the Class C housing, is you get some pretty big expenses. You get the occasional tenant that trashes your place, and you got to go in there and just clean it all up.
Right.
And if you're operating on a shoestring of making $50 a month, it's a hard long road to replace the $10,000 that tenant decided to do in damage because they didn't like you.
Mhm.
That has happened. It doesn't happen a lot, but it does happen even when you do a decent job of qualifying. I've had good tenants that, it was a boyfriend that trashed the house. The tenant actually ended up making amends and paying for that repairs. I appreciated the stand up nature, but she was a good tenant that was well screened, but somebody came into her life that, we don't control who people who people get involved with, that are going to live at your house.
Right.
And so Milwaukee happened because I started looking for the Georgia like numbers. And what I mean by that is good rates of return, good value properties. The Midwest is one of the few places in the country where property values are still good.
Mm.
And so I was interested in that. And so I got on a lot of different wholesalers lists. And really my criteria was send me anything you've got that's more than one house. Duplex, quadruplex, you know, 10 units that might all be individuals, but they're being sold, as 10. I only did the multi units, not necessarily multifamily, because I ended up buying the 14 that I've got in Milwaukee are all individual condos
Okay.
that are all one offs, but they were two different. One was an investor for 6 units, one was an investor for 8, but they were each individual. They aren't really what I would call true multifamily, where it's the apartment style living. Um, and so I bought in because I was looking for value. I was looking for passive income for my retirement. When I went to the Georgia market, I wasn't looking for appreciation. I didn't care if the house was worth 25 or 27.5. Like, I want $500 a month for the rest of my life, or
Right.
whatever that rent is. And that's what I was looking for Wisconsin. So it took a while before one of the wholesalers popped, and they had, I think, 6 units. This would have been 2022. And honestly, at that point I was fully involved in multifamily, and I wasn't really looking for um, single family. But the multifamily market really cooled last year, and I had a little bit of discretionary cash, and the timing just worked out perfect. I didn't have a multifamily project to work on. I wasn't raising capital for one. I wasn't. I've got a couple of guys I partner with on a couple of different syndications, and things were just fairly quiet. And here comes this, 6 doors where the owner wants to hold 75% financing, and I only had to come up with 25%. And they wanted, well, this was last November, so it was 5.25%. So the below market interest rate got my attention. And then I was looking at the properties going, they're $300 a month each below the market rents. Yes, they did need renovation, but I'm pretty experienced with what renovation costs and how quickly we can renovate them. So I was very excited to get a hold of them, renovate them, and bring them up to market rents. Um, and then once I bought 6 from that wholesaler, I got a very similar deal for 8 units February of this year. So I went from 0 to 14 in the Milwaukee area, and at this point, those numbers are as good as the numbers that I saw in Georgia many years ago. And
Mm.
so right now, I feel like I'm pretty good with my single family portfolio. I'm trying to kind of put them on autopilot, if you will, and work with the property manager to have some metrics. And I really only lean in when one of those metrics is like, hey, why is net income down this month? Oh, well, here's what's going on.
Mm.
So I think I might have over answered there. So let me give
No,
you a chance to ask the next question.
that's perfect. That's perfect because I wanted to ask what made you shift from your single family to multifamily. I think you kind of answered that. Um, my next thing is for uh, you taking action. Like, did you have any obstacles that came in your way, or during your real estate investment journey? Have you had any obstacles where you had to jump, or where it kept you like in a fear mode, and then you just took action? And what are some strategies you can share with the audience members on those actionable steps that you took and that they can take during their investment journey, or any part of life that they're stuck?
Absolutely. Well, I'm not really a fear guy, so that isn't how I respond to things. When I
Mm.
got into real estate, I had the goal that I want a comfortable retirement, and that's a pretty loose definition, right? Well, what is comfortable? Well, it kind of keeps going up. A lot of the gurus out there say, hey, figure out what your budget is, figure out what your minimum expenses are, and when you hit that number, like, you can safely step into retirement. Well, that's true, but I set that number a little higher. I like my day job. I enjoy what I do. And so, at the end of the day, I've got 2 in college right now, so expenses are a bit high. It's like, why do I want to just leave my day job, to match my existing expenses? I actually want to travel a little more with my wife, and fly business class instead of regular coach. And like, there's just a lot of different ways that you say, hey, I want to enjoy life a little more. And so that enjoyment has a price tag associated with it. So I set a number at 150% of my expenses, really for two reasons. One, I do want to enjoy life, but number two, right now is an interesting time. It would really stink to leave that day job only to boomerang bank in 6 months because maybe real estate didn't pan out exactly like you wanted it to. And so if you leave, just barely covering the bills, well, you might have to come back, and I don't want to see that happen. So when I
Mhm.
do leave, I want it to be, very, very comfortable. Um, I'm sorry. Let's see. What was yours was a multi-part question. So let me go
Yeah,
back
so
to some
so
of the
it was
others.
just what actionable steps that the audience members can take, because we have those moments in life or on our real estate journey or in business in general where we get stuck.
Hmm.
What are some actionable steps that they can take to move forward? And if you have any stories that you can share that's similar to that, what are some actionable steps that you did to overcome
Absolutely.
obstacles? Yeah.
Well, I would say probably the biggest obstacle for me was time and money. I had a day job, I got a family, I got a wife, I got kids. Like everybody else, my schedule's already full. And so, fairly early on, I had to figure out, well, when the heck am I going to have time to do real estate? And so, I later learned that there's a concept called time blocking where you literally look at your calendar and you say, okay, I'm going to do my day job from 7 to 5 and from 5 to 6 every day. I'm going to do real estate. And then Saturday morning, usually about 7 a.m., I get up, usually before the rest of my family. And my family will get up and maybe we do something for the day about 10. So, like 7 to 10 became like real estate hours Saturday
Mhm.
morning. And so I would do all the real estate that I could based on the hours that I could give it in a week. And that worked pretty well for me. Well, one of the things that happens just in life is you got to compartmentalize a little bit. If you're laying awake at night thinking about, oh, I got to remember to, call Arsenio back and get on that podcast. Well, you don't want to be doing that. Like when you're in your day job, you need to be all about your day job. There's plenty of work to do there. When you're in real estate, you want to be in real estate. You don't want to be thinking about your day job. And so I think I've done a good job of time blocking and compartmentalizing that I don't worry about forgetting things. I put things in my calendar. Hey, these are the 10 things that I got to do Saturday morning. If I do think of something real estate focused and I'm in my day job, I might scribble a quick little note in my calendar to, hey, make sure to do that like next Saturday. And that's worked extremely well for me because honestly, once you do a deal, I don't care what it is, it's so much easier to do it the second time or the 10th time or the 50th time. And you just kind of start putting some systems in place. You start learning who are the people that you can count on, and it gets easier to do things. So it gets down to you can spend your time figuring out where is that new market that I want to invest in, or what is that new thing or that new skill that I've got to learn. And what it does is it reduces your attention down to a couple of, maybe there's a real estate book I want to read. Maybe there's a thing that I want to get good at, whether I need to partner with somebody for that or I've got to learn a new skill. And so you reduce the number of net new things that you're focused on.
Yeah. I think time blocking is really, really a good way of structuring your your time, because
Yep.
time is one of the most valuable assets that we can have in this life.
Yep.
And that time blocking can really like make you focus on a specific goal, on a specific target that you want to do, especially like you said, when you have these systems in place, you know what's going to be ahead, and then you know how to adjust. And I like the way the stories that you've shared yourself on
Hmm.
how you shifted and how you've moved forward from one point to another, and being to where you're at now getting into the multifamily space. It's just been, I would say, an incredible journey for yourself, with uh, with all your valuable information in regards to single family housing, and now
Hmm.
moving into the multifamily. I think you'll do phenomenal. And with that being said, gotta wrap it up. What are some ways that the audience members can connect with you?
Absolutely. So we've got a website. It's largogroup2011.com. Yes, started Largo Group in 2011. If you go there and you put your email in the little investor dialogue, we'll automatically send you a little ebook. I wrote it. It's a short little ebook, and what it really talks about is active investing versus passive investing, because it's part of the education process that I go through with a lot of my investors. Is like, hey, Most of them want the benefits and the control of, you know, active investing, but they want to invest passively. I was like, that animal doesn't work. Like you can
Mm,
invest passively, and I like to tell people a passive investment looks like buying an airline ticket. You get to decide where you're going and what you're doing. But once you pay the ticket, you just basically get in your seat and they take you to where they want to go.
mm,
You don't get any control. You don't tell the pilot where to go. You don't tell them, anything at all. You're just counting on, hey, they're going to take you to this location.
right.
That's called passive investing.
Mm,
Now, as a really big investor, you might have some influence over that operator, but at the end of the day, that operator's got to make the best decision about what they think is best for that investment. And so if you're not comfortable with that, that's fine. Then active investing is a possibility, but just know that most of the people that I know that have the money for passive investing simply don't have the time to be an active investor. And so you have to be honest with what resources you have. Um, and for me, I've always enjoyed the real estate side. I don't mind, you know, I did a lot of my own leases, in the early day before property manager. I did Section 8. I sweated all those details. I didn't mind doing that at 10 o'clock at night because that's when I had to get them done
mm.
and then find out ways to do things remotely. Like I kind of enjoyed that and that sort of paid off. So I would say figure out your strengths and weaknesses. What are you good at and what do you need to be paying somebody else to do? And just live in what you're good at and just, live with the fact that you won't make as much money giving some of those other duties away for pay, but you'll be happier in the long run because you have a more sustainable business model than doing everything yourself.
That's perfect. That's I think we'll put that link in our show notes in regards to the active versus passive investors. And I think that's going to be some great knowledge on especially on individuals who stuck on between what they want to do. And like you said, if you want to save time, and your time is valuable to you, I think passive investing, if you don't want to get into the nit and gritty of what the multifamily space will bring to you and what single family housing, I think being a passive investor is the best option. And then if you want to be active, you want to be hands on, get involved, I think active is the best route for you. So great way to go. How else can people connect with you besides your website? Any social media platforms that you have?
Yeah, thanks for that, Arsenio. So actually, at the bottom of my webpage, we're got a good LinkedIn presence, Instagram, and Facebook. We do actually post 3 to 5 times a week, and we try and drop some value in there. At the end of the day, there's a lot of different ways that folks can learn about real estate. I would say, lean in, read books, go to conferences, go to webinars. You need to find somebody that you just think has it going on. And it doesn't have to be one person, but you need to start somewhere and you need to start getting educated, because I think there's a lot of different ways to make money in real estate. And so you gotta figure out where can you connect. um, you know you can invest passively, and when you get the time you can move to active. I think it's really cool that I've actually got some passive and some active investments going on at the same time, but then I see a point where I'm going to be full-time real estate somewhere in the future. So I don't mind necessarily some of the active requirements of real estate, but I'm in a different place than somebody else. So just again, look at your unique situation. What do you have the time and the money and the interest for? And then just carve a strategy out that aligns with your current, situation and where you want to be.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jerry. That was very great. Great way to end the conversation here. I'm sure we could talk even more about what you do and what you've provided to the real estate industry. Hopefully, maybe in the near future, we can jump on another episode and we'll discuss even further what you do and where you're at on your multifamily project.
Cool. I always love talking about real estate, man. Anytime.
Absolutely. Thank you again for joining, Jerry. I appreciate you.
You're very welcome. Good to see you. Take
Good
care.
to see you too. Take care.